Hey whores, I've got something to share. I love magic wands and I love anal toys, so I've partnered with LaWand and B-Vibe to get you the best discounts on their entire site. From now until June 30, get 20% off the entire store by using code SEXEDWITHTIM at checkout. Get yourself a rumbly magic wand or even a rimming plug and get you coming, baby. That's LaWand and B-Vibe and use code SEXEDWITHTIM for 20% off both stores. Check the description for more details and I'll see you at your next orgasm. Mwah! The Sex Ed with Tim podcast is recorded on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaty, signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands.
You're listening to Sex Ed with Tim.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Sex Ed with Tim podcast. I'm your host, Tim. I'm a certified sex educator. I identify as a chaotic homosexual. And Vance, I have a question for you. What is the name of the NSYNC member who loves dick and working with his body?
Lance?
No, somatic phallic Chris Kirkpatrick.
Okay. I was gonna say Lance was my favorite when I was a kid.
I mean, as gay guys, wasn't he all of our favorites?
Yeah. But I did think JC was the hottest.
Okay, fair.
Yeah.
And then as I grew older, I was having a bit of a daddy thing for Joey Fatone, and I was like,
oh yeah.
Hey Joey, if you ever listen to this.
Yeah.
But hey, thank you so much, Vance. People listening, I am so nervous because holy shit, I am recording this fresh off of a somatic session with my guest today, and oh boy, I am riding a different wave of energy, high. I don't know. We'll see what's going to happen because guess what? When you get better with your mental health, you lose your sense of humor. Using
That's
humor to deflect.
Yeah.
That's a lie and a half. No, but listeners, that very handsome and dulcet, deep, sweet voice you hear at the other end of the mic is none other than my newest friend and such a cutie patootie, Vance. Hey, Vance, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. It was a good day. It was nice meeting you and having our session today. It was made my day.
Oh my goodness, Vance! Like you have no idea. Like the nerves, oh boy! I'm just like I'm absolutely like. I'm still kind of shaking right now from like just riding off that energy and our somatic session. But before we get into that, because I do want to talk about it and want to like unpack everything that happened in session. How about you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So my name is Vance. I'm a somatic sex and relationship coach. So I help gay men deal with anxiety, shame, trauma, so they can find deeper connection, more meaningful connection, and more pleasurable sex.
And we all know how much help the gays need, to be quite honest.
I do think everybody needs help on that front, but I'm working the gays.
In more ways than one.
Yeah. Yeah.
But let's start with some basic definitions first, because I'm not sure everybody knows exactly what somatic is. So what is your role as a somatic sex coach and educator?
Yeah, so a somatic practice is anything that helps you be in your body and out of your head. So somatic practitioners work a lot with people with trauma. It's a lot of work with the nervous system. So when you get triggered, usually you get anxious, you get in your head. There's a lot of things that will happen that take you out of the moment. And so what I help people to do is to have the tools, whether it's through breath, movement, talking, to be able to relax to calm their nervous system and come back to being in their body so they can feel what they're feeling.
They can feel, oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm just focused on everything that I'm feeling right now. I'm feeling all of the feelings. How am I feeling right now, Vance? I'm feeling,
I said, what are you feeling?
Oh, what am I feeling? When I left session, I was at a 1 out of 10 on the anxiety scale. Now I'm at like a 3 out of 10, only because of the nature of this recording.
Yeah.
I'm feeling very like, I don't know what to say. I'm not like deep in a depression right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm actually quite very happy to be recording this with you. And I'm just, I don't know. You left me speechless. That's all I have to say.
Well, that's okay. As long as you're feeling something.
Trust me, Vance, I'm feeling many, many things.
Yeah.
So why would someone require your services besides like the trauma and anxiety? What can clients get from hiring a somatic practitioner?
So if you're someone that struggles with connection or sex, so like I'll just name out some examples of people. So some people, when they meet new people or when they're trying to date, they're very socially awkward and uncomfortable, and they allow themselves to get in their head, so it doesn't even allow them to be themselves when they're engaging with people. So I would practice with my clients so that they could keep coming back to their body, keep trying to breathe, relax, and be themselves. Sexually, it could be things like if you struggle with erectile dysfunction, if you have premature ejaculation, or just get anxiety and don't know what you like sexually or what you're into. My work, though, I should say, is all about, it's not about if you have erectile dysfunction, I'm not going to help you get a raging hard on and figure out how to do that.
I was going to say, like, are you going to jack them off?
No, I wouldn't do that, but that might come out of it. But really what I'm trying to do is help them see that they can feel pleasure and not have to worry about those things. So a lot of gay men, the reason why they get into their heads is because they feel like they have confidence issues about the way that their body looks, how they are in bed, or just who they are as a person to connect, right? And so all that stuff prevents us from getting turned on, being in our body, feeling pleasure, right? So if you're having sex and maybe one of the reasons why you can't get hard is because you're thinking too much about what the other person is thinking of you. And so of course you're not going to get hard. Of course you're going to not feel pleasure because you're going to be too much in your head, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Why focus your practice on gay men, though? Besides the fact that we're both gay, like why specifically choose to help gay men's sex lives?
Well, because I got into so I'm a yoga teacher too. And so I started out teaching yoga in 2017. And I always knew that even then I wanted to work with men in general. And I think even now it's more men I want to work on because I think there's a lot of issues with men just opening up and being vulnerable.
Understatement of the year.
Yeah. Yeah. But so I always wanted to work with men as a yoga teacher. And the thing is, most people who come to yoga classes are women, and that's just the way that it works out. And I do think it's another issue of men feeling like it's feminine to do yoga or something. And so they fear it.
So hard.
Yeah. But lots of men don't do it. Right. And there is a thing of like, it's vulnerable. Mostly women do it. It seems more, even though it's not, but it seems more like a women's space. So I think a lot of men avoid it. And I also think that a lot of men think it's like, especially men who are into fitness and working out will avoid it because it's not as tough or as like working
macho,
out weights. It's
masculine.
There's all that masculinity part of it. I started getting into sex work I started doing burlesque, and that led me into sex work and starting an OnlyFans. And I escorted for brief month. And so, but through all these experiences, I started to realize that, and just from my friends, that I realized how much men were struggling with connection and how many men were lonely and how many men had anxiety over who they were and unable to connect. And so I just had this moment of being like, oh, I think I should, this is what I need to do. Somehow I need to help men connect. And the way it kind of worked out is I just met someone who was a somatic practitioner, and he said, I think this is the work that you're looking for. And so that's how I got into it.
I actually wanted to ask you how you got into the somatic practice. Like, where do you go for your training? Who do you work with?
So I did it through a school in San Francisco called Somatica. Two lovely teachers, Danielle and Celeste, who taught me how to do it. They're amazing. I love them. Even when I went into the course, and they're just both, what I realized about this work is that it's social justice work. And like really what we're doing is we're teaching people to be themselves. It's like what I said about I'm not teaching people to be like, to give them better tips to have better orgasms or like some
That's
sort of
my
Cosmo
job.
guide. Yeah. It's like just teaching people to just be themselves, and you're not going to be perfect, and you just need to show up and be yourself and have other people see that. Right. And so, but just by being that, there's so much of society that says, it's shameful to be sexual. It's shameful to be a slut. It's shameful to have different relationship styles. It's shameful to be alone. Like there's so much of this stuff that like so many people are in deep mental health issues because of what society has told us what we should be and how we should live our lives. And all I'm doing is trying to help people see that how that shame shows up in their body and prevents them from actually being themselves, which leads them to more connection, more pleasure.
You are just taking things from our session today, aren't you, Vance? Just like
what? Yeah.
All of the things I unpacked on session is now on the air. Oh my God.
but you know what? I would say that like, that is the main reason why anyone comes to see me, or like what I'm trying to do to help them, is that it's just, there's so much of like comparison of everyone is doing it, including myself, of like, I'm not good enough because I see all these people out there that look better, are more successful, have more friends, all that. And it's really about realizing, no, my life is okay as I am, and I just have to live it my own way, which is really hard.
It's so difficult being authentic, especially in a world where like we're flooded with messages of you gotta be a specific thing and you have to appear a specific way through social media, through whatever. And it's just like, can I just be? Please?
Yeah.
I just want to be. Leave me alone.
Well, we talked about this today, where it was the thing with gay men, that our looks become our currency and our worth and our value. And it's really hard to see that past that if you don't fit into the mold of having a different body type than what is seen as the ideal. Because like, I know for like my experience, it's like, if you look out at those guys who are perfect looking, it's like, well, look how much attention and acceptance and love they get. But what I've realized is like, well, it's attention. It's not real connection.
Mm-hmm. It's likes. That's all it is. Double taps.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And the way I think about it is like, it's like a drug.
You need to keep your supply high. Yeah. Oh my God.
And so I'll get into this where I'm just like, oh God, I'm so lonely. If I just look that way, like I would have more friends and stuff. And it's like, well, that's not really true. It's not even about that.
Which is interesting because I personally see you as one of like the gorgeous looking ones. Like I see you as like, oh, he must be like, he probably has all the attention of all the guys all the time because he's gorgeous. He's got an OnlyFans and he's like I told you, like I was very sexually attracted to you, which is why I was super nervous and like I don't know how to handle this kind of energy. So yeah, I was like very thrown back when you told me that you have those kinds of insecurities and thought processes as well, because I'm like, wait, you're the hot one and you're saying that hot people or other hot people have that kind of like that sort of I don't even know how you say it, that like that chase for that high. I don't know. I was just like, how are you so aware, or like I guess what I'm trying to say is that it's really surprising to hear a hot person recognize the hot problem.
Yeah. Well, so I'll tell you, like, my experience with it is that, like, what I've realized with the attention that I get and the negative side effect of it is that it's become like, so me as a person, I'm a very deep thinker, sensitive, very emotional, and so that's what the types of relationships I look for, and it's really hard to find other men that are like that. And so I've always struggled with loneliness, not really feeling like I fit in with anybody. And so, but when you're getting all this attention for the way that you look, it becomes this like, oh, I can't lose this, because if I lose this, then no one's going to like me. And so it becomes this like anxiety thing. But I think that like when I've always like, I remember when I was 18 and like started going to the bar and got hit on, and it was like this drug and felt amazing. But I think that since I've been really sexually open and expressive my whole life, that I've never had this like I explored having lots of sex and doing all that, and it's great and it's fun and I enjoy sex. But I think now the way I look at it is that it can almost sometimes feel like harassment. Because I don't want that. I want connection. I want someone, it's even funny with like my Instagram and stuff, which is very sexual because it just is that's me anyways. But
your
it's
Instagram and your Twitter, very, very sexy.
Yeah. And so, but a lot of that stuff is me expressing myself. It's not to like, it's exploring photography and sex and art, which I think I found is like the way that I express my sexuality on my own is performing. That's what I started learning with like dance and burlesque is, and I don't need anything. I don't need people to validate that for me. It's just the way that I enjoy to express myself. And so I get like, if people are constantly just saying you're really hot or you look great, and it's like, thanks, but it doesn't really do anything. Like I would rather have someone say, oh my God, you love Britney Spears too. I saw her in Vegas 3 or 4 years ago, whatever it was. And I would be like, oh my God, really? Oh my God, I love her. And I would talk, I feel like they're at least seeing something that is deeper than my body.
Something beyond the superficial.
Yeah. And so like, I think the thing about like, being hot, and I think they can't see my quotation mark fingers, but
air quotes.
Yeah. Because the thing about it is like, I don't look at myself in the mirror and go, I'm really hot. I look at myself and compare myself to everyone who is more muscular, better looking than me, and thinking I don't look good enough. And I have like, I think a bit of body dysmorphia I always have seen myself as being like too small and like not masculine enough. And it just comes from, culture of toxic masculinity that says like to be smaller must mean I'm more feminine, and that's not as desirable. And so I have all those issues, but I'm like, again, that's all society stuff, and I'm trying to like push that out of my head. But I don't like, there's not a lot of times that I'm like, oh, I feel great, or I mean, I look in the mirror and I'm like, oh, I look so fucking hot. It's like I'm still comparing and doing that thing too. And with the attention that I do get, I think it's overrated. And even the sex that I have, people that I have the best sex with has never been because they were really hot. It was because I was really connected to them, and we had the same type of
energy,
interest in sexual connection. Yeah. Like I'm a very emotional partner connection type person, and so. Like I like eye contact, I like closeness, I like passionate sex.
Same. Oh my God! Like I have had how many partners, and like I've had all the kinks and all that stuff, and I've learned that about myself. That it's like, just give me eye contact, give me body contact, give me passion, make me feel, I don't know, special. Is that a narcissistic thing to say? I just want to feel special with anyone I have sex with.
Yeah, and that's really beautiful, and you should have that, right? And but like, how do you find that? Well, communication, by like telling your partners that you are into that kind of stuff, or that's who you are, right? And I find that just general hookups, like there isn't a conversation, there is no communication of like the conversation is like, what are you into? It's be like, well, I'm a bottom, and no one is like, well, I'm really into partner connection. So if you can make sure that you're really close, or oh, actually, I'm really into spirituality. I want to like connect to God, or whatever the
I'm
fucking
really
thing is.
into like trigonometry and biophysics.
Yeah,
What about
yeah,
that?
yeah.
Oh my
And so,
god.
or whatever, if you're into like really kinky gangbang, whatever stuff, like whatever is your
Mhm.
thing, right? Usually that stuff doesn't come out on the first date or the first time you have sex with someone. So I think like that's why like communication and that all takes vulnerability and being yourself and
And authenticity and just being genuine. And I guess that is basically like the huge part of the somatic practice is getting in touch with your authentic self. So my next question then is, would somatic practice be basically tantric, or is it like different? Are they just similar?
it'd be different. So tantra is like the practice of tantra is, and I'm not a tantra expert, so I haven't done any training or in that, so I'm not. From what I know of it, is a tantra is it's more of the focus is on the journey and not the outcome. So like with sex, it's focusing on the lasting of the sex and not the orgasm, right? So like that's the point of it, is to keep the sex going, being in the moment and being present. But like so many of us are like, we want to get off, right? And so like that, the thing that I would help people with that it relates to is that the thing is we don't need to have orgasm to have great sex, right? And
Correct.
like there's so many times that, oh well, I'm sure this is experienced with a lot of guys, that like there's that time where someone feels like they can't come and they're focusing so hard on coming for the other guy because maybe the other guy came already, and it's just like, we don't need
Pressure.
to come, you can slow down, right? Like because the pressure, that's the mental part that's like starting to all of a sudden be like, oh, I can't come, so now it's becoming harder, I need to come. And so what I would help them do is just to be like, you don't have to come, like let's just let go of that, right? Like you can either just be done or you can keep the sex going or keep it slow and passionate. We don't need to focus on the genitals all the time, right?
Correct. Because the entire body is like sexually capable of feeling pleasure, not just your dick, not just your ass. Like fucking touch
Mhm.
my arm, look me in the eyes, rub my nose with your nose, like boop me there or something.
Yeah.
I want that.
And I think also the thing with guys and just like jerking off themselves, masturbating, is that like a lot of us, you know, watch porn and jerk off for like 5 minutes, you know, and so like that's the problem too, is that we're not even exploring what feels good on ourselves, right? It's like even if I jerking off, because I got into the habit, especially in the pandemic stuff, where it was like jerking off 5 times a day, and then I was like, okay, this isn't even like, I feel like it's just habit at this point to just do it, and
It's
so
just boring. It's like a chore now.
yeah, and then it's like, but now I'm trying to do like, okay, well, I'm gonna like have a nice long session with myself. So maybe I'll use a dildo, and you know, maybe I'll get stoned and have like a 20-minute jerk off masturbation session where I'm riding this dildo and like touching myself and moving my body and not just laying there looking at porn, jerking off for 5 minutes till I come, right? Like I think
Mhm.
masturbation should be special too. Or even when you're masturbating, like you don't always have to come. Like
Yeah. And
take time.
and like masturbating, I feel doesn't necessarily have to be focusing on your genitals. You could like be playing with your nipples or massaging your own ass cheeks, and that could be masturbation.
Yeah, or even just, I don't know about you, but like I remember like before I discovered masturbation, I discovered fantasizing. And I remember I would like when I was like 11 or 12, I don't know, but I I remember just like I would always be going to take a nap and I would just fantasize, and like I never even knew that masturbation was an option, and fantasizing would get me turned on and feel really good in my body. And so sometimes just like you can fantasize anywhere. You can be riding the subway and like start fantasizing and turning yourself on, right?
Oh my God.
We always have access to that.
The amount of times I have just stuck a butt plug inside of me and rode the train, and like
Yeah.
I would just like see a cute guy walk in and I'm like,
yeah. You do that too.
great, I'm not alone.
Yeah.
Oh my God, living in a gay man's head is truly something to behold. I recommend everybody try it.
Yeah.
Now, because you do focus your practice on the gays, what do you think is wrong? Okay, maybe not wrong. Or what do you think gay men are getting wrong about sex? Or like, what are we lacking? Why is it that we're so conditioned to think that our looks are our currency? Or why is it that we're just so focused on getting off and leaving?
Well, I think there's quite a few issues, the reasons why.
It is
Like,
a big
for example,
question, yeah.
So also so when we're kids and we learn intimacy from our parents, right? And how our parents treat us. And I think from my experience, and I'm sure a lot of other men's experience, is that like I didn't really have an affectionate relationship with my dad. And so like,
same.
yeah. So like we didn't hug, we didn't say I love you. There wasn't really any of that. And then even when I was a kid in school, like I gravitated more towards women and became friends with the girls and not the guys. And I didn't ever really have a blueprint of what real intimacy and connection looked like with another man. Because I know I'm from Saskatchewan. And so I know like the men there, it's very much about what it means to be a man, means to be hard, don't cry, don't show feelings. And so I think just the ability to do that with other men in a friendship way even is really difficult for us because we didn't really learn how to do that.
Oh gosh, that's so hard to hear. That like all gay men, well, maybe not all gay men, but just the huge majority of gay men have the similar experience where it's like they just don't know where to get, or they don't have any models of intimacy from such an early age.
Yeah, and I think then it just also becomes, then we go into a culture of men that, also don't show feelings and emotions and deal with perfectionism. And so it's really hard to like start connecting and learning now.
As adults, yeah, now we have to like unpack all of our shit. Like, maybe, hey, guess what? Your abs aren't really that big of a deal, huh? Maybe the size of your dick isn't that much of a thing in relationships, huh?
Well, I think all of that stuff is just armor to like, like we kind of talked about perfectionism today, but like that's like the one big thing that gay men struggle with. Like I remember thinking, like I used to think like, why are all gay men like really good at home decor and like are in really good shape? Like there's no biological gene that's in a gay man that makes them good at interior design. And then it was like we said today that the Velvet Rage in that book, he talks about how it's our shame because we internalize the shame of being gay. And I think that comes with too, being gay as a man. If you grew up in an environment that said being feminine wasn't okay for a man, being gay was like, if you're a gay kid, feminine was your way that people saw how you were gay, right? So you learn to not be those things. And so you internalize all that shame. Even if like things got better and you came out and everything was good, like you still have that like shame, which is trying to protect you. And so that shame comes out in perfectionism with a lot of gay men. So it's like going to the gym, making sure your body looks perfect, being more masculine, having really nice things. Because if you just make everything around you perfect, then people won't have to see who you really are, right? They're going to notice the perfection.
Oh, if you surround yourself with perfect things, nobody will notice the imperfection that is you. Oh God.
Yeah. So it's all just armor, right? And we need to learn to like let that down a bit sometimes to let people in. I'll tell you, even when I'm in struggle and shame, so like when I'm feeling lonely, my first natural impulse is to start working out more, because the thought process in my brain is saying, fine, then I won't have any friends, then I'm just going to look really amazing. And so, but honestly, but it's a way to, instead of me having to admit that, oh, I'm lonely and I don't have connection and that really hurts. Instead, it'll be like my ego kicks in and is like, well, I'm going to become really successful then and throw it in everyone's face who doesn't like me. Like it's another way of like putting up that armor of like, well, I'll just be really successful then.
Oh my God, that's very Regina George, Mean Girls. Like,
yeah.
Look at me, I'm so beautiful and I'm so hot. I'm not going to let anyone in because this is all they should focus on. I'm not going to tell you all my deepest, darkest secrets or whatever. And it's like, that's so exhausting.
It is really exhausting. I've actually thought this in my head a few times and I'm like, oh God, I wish I could just like let that stuff go and just like, if I wasn't feeling well, take a month off from it. But I'm so conditioned to be like, I'm struggling. Okay, I got to work harder then.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Because the fear too is that if I stop working hard, then I'm going to lose everything. And I'll be like, okay, now I have no friends, no connection, and I'm not successful at my job. Like, what do I have?
Then it's like, well, what are we? What's left of us if we're not surrounded by admirers, if we're not filling our pockets with cash, if we don't have the model Abercrombie and Fitch body, what's left?
Yeah. And it's just, it's all social conditioning bullshit. It really is. And that's the thing that, yeah. And so I just want people to understand this stuff really doesn't matter.
We'll be right back after this commercial break.
Yes!
Hello, all my little sluts. It's me, Mama Slut. Hope you're enjoying the show so far. I just wanted to hop on here real quick to let you in on a sexy little deal. Do you like feeling sexy and looking sexy? Of course you do. Only my listeners are sexy as fuck. I have partnered with fetishwear designer Dale Kuda to bring you the hottest deals on custom jock straps, harnesses, hats, and more. Head over to dalekuda.com, that's DALEKUDA.com, and use code SEXEDWITHTIM at checkout for 25% off the entire store. Yeah, you heard me, 25% off. And cherry on top, free shipping. Oh my God. I have a few of the stuff that he has made for me, and girl, I'm wearing it right now. I'm wearing like a little jock strap so that I could easily just like slip a little butt plug or dildo every now and then here and there. And I'm on the train. I'm just like, thank you, Dale. That's dalekuda.com with the code SEXEDWITHTIM for 25% off your entire purchase with free shipping. With a deal like that, I swear I could come buckets, honey. Hey, you disgusting pervs. We all like sex toys, right? Nipple clamps, vibrators, masturbators, oh my. Good For Her has one of the best selection of sex toys, learning resources, online workshops, and gender expression materials you can't find anywhere else. Go to goodforher.com and use code SEXEDWITHTIM10 for 10% off your purchase of any of the toys bought online. That's goodforher.com and the code SEXEDWITHTIM10 at checkout for 10% off your purchase of any of the toys bought online. And they ship worldwide. Trans-inclusive, feminist, and pleasure-focused, Good For Her has been doing the Lord's work since 1997, bringing you everything you need to get that
The show is about to begin.
Yes.
I want to now segue into talking about our session today because everything we just talked about this far into this conversation has been extremely relevant to what happened in session. So, first, I'll start with what I experienced and what I can recount, and then you can tell your side of your point of view from the session. So for me, when I came in, I was like very nervous. I didn't know what was going to happen. I'm already super fucking anxious. And before session, I already told you what was going through my head and what were like some of the things I'm facing, like imposter syndrome, my anxiety, and my depression. And there was just something so natural about the way you let all of that out of me that like I the last time I cried in front of a total stranger was my therapist, who I've been seeing for the last 4 years. So I was caught way off guard when you were able to make me cry within like half an hour. And I was like, holy fuck.
Well, first all, I'm gonna say I didn't intentionally make you cry.
But you were like, you kind of wanted me to be that vulnerable, didn't you? Like, let's get it out of you.
Yeah. I mean, I just wanted you to be yourself, right?
That's true. And I did feel like my most capital S self when I was with you. And oh boy, was it liberating and was it ever so freeing. It's just that not everybody gets that opportunity, right? Not everybody gets to be their most authentic self. And I feel like the work that you do is so goddamn important. And it's so beautiful how you let that out of me. And I was just like, I like cried on the train ride home.
Oh,
well, thank goodness I had a mask to like absorb the tears, but like, you know, and I was all alone in the train. So I was like, thank God nobody can see this. I was just like sobbing. Like everything that we talked about in session just made me like think about, am I doing some sort of performance for my clients? And am I seeking the approval of other gay men because that's all I see my worth in, you know? Like we were talking about how in gay culture, your looks are your currency. So because I was escorting for 4 years and I made some money there, I thought that's where I saw my worth in. And now that we're in the throes of a pandemic and I've already quit escorting, I've gained a shit ton of weight and my body's changing and I'm kind of having trouble with that in the context of gay culture. I'm like, am I even a worthy human being? Because I've tied so much of my self-worth to my body, to my job, to the kinds of friends I make, the kind of sex I have. So like, for example, if I have a bottoming accident, I'm like, fuck, I'm a sex educator. This should never have happened. That means I'm just a really piece of shit human being, which is like, what a thought process, right? So,
yeah.
And you got that out of me through session. And I'm still reeling in from that. So, goodness, thank you so much for that, Vance. But, I want to get like your side, your point of view from today's session, just like a prognosis rather.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about a prognosis, but I think one of the things that I help men do, and I do this for myself too, is that this idea of embodiment, of like being in your body and feeling what you're feeling in the moment. And I think one of the things that I love about this work is that, like, even as a yoga teacher, I remember a lot of guys who would want to hire me to teach them yoga. It was like, teach me yoga so I can be in shape and I can look amazing and feel great. And I always was like, well, first of all, that's not really what yoga is about. Yoga is about being present in the moment and feeling and being self-aware. And so I always was like, that's great. I'm glad you want to feel great and, get to this goal of like looking better and all this stuff or whatever, accomplishing your goals. But really, like, all I wanted for you was to feel what you're feeling. So like, I'm not going to try to take away your loneliness. I'm not trying to take away your shame. I'm not trying to take away any of that. all I want is for you to be able to express it with me and then hopefully other people in your life, right? Because the thing is, we can't make those feelings go away, or we
But
shouldn't
I want
anyway.
him to. I don't want to be on meds anymore, Vance.
Yeah, but we have to feel what we're feeling, or else then it's never going to pass, right? And we have to go through what we're going through, though, and it's awful and it's difficult and like it sucks ass. But the thing that I've learned about what I want in this work is that it's becomes so much more easy and beautiful if you can do that with someone that you love and care about. And so like that's the thing that we're missing, is that we're all lonely and anxious and depressed, but we don't even know how to talk about it with someone or how to get support. And that's what we need to do, right? That's what we have to learn to do better, because that's the thing that's going to get us through.
Mm-hmm. Now, from today's session, how did you approach me as a new client? Like, did you have like any sort of expectations or like some sort of agenda or schedule, like a routine? How do you approach your new clients with whatever it is that they're bringing to session?
So I have no expectations. And we kind of talked about this today where when I started doing this, I did try to plan things. And then I realized that I don't know what you're feeling. I don't know what's going on. And even when clients will come up to me and say that they're struggling with this issue, it can go in a completely different direction, right? Because it might bring up more of like an emotional side of something, right? So what I tell people, and I told you this, that just think about it like it's a date, because all we're going to do is we're going to talk and hopefully practice some skills, right? So the part of my work in the somatic practice part of it is that we get to actually practice these things within certain boundaries. And so like touch is okay. And like, if you don't mind me sharing that, like, I was just like hugging you and holding your hand through it. And when you were getting anxious and nervous, because I was wanting you to let me know how I can help you and how I can support you to find a little bit more calm in the moment, right? And I didn't plan that because I didn't know you'd be nervous and anxious. So I just have to just be present with you and hopefully hold a safer space for you to be yourself.
And you did. I was just very thrown back with all of the emotions that came forward. So how, from your point of view as a practitioner, how would you handle, or how was there any way for you to prepare yourself for my random spur of the moment sobbing outburst? Because I didn't expect that to happen. And I bet that was very heavy for someone as empathetic as you to like, okay, how am I going to be there for this person, for this client? How do you like even prepare yourself for something that emotionally draining?
Well, first of all, I don't find it emotionally draining.
Okay, because I was drained.
Yeah. So this is the one that, can I share a little?
Yeah, share myself? Everything.
One of the reasons why I like this work and stuff, and like how I said I'm like a deep thinker and I'm like I look for meaningful relationships, is that I actually feel more comfortable with really intense shit than I feel comfortable with like going for dinner and everyone just talking about their last vacation or superficial, shallow things. There's nothing wrong with that. But
let's talk about philosophy for the night, Well,
I used to, like, it was funny when I was a kid, and a teenager, I should say more so, but I love Oprah. And I remember always watching Oprah every day. And I hated the episodes that were like, we're doing a home makeover or like whatever. I love the episodes that was like heavy. Some woman who her kids were all killed in a house fire and her husband left her on the same day, or like just like intense, but like intense crazy shit. Because I was like, I would just feel for these people and be like, oh my God, how did they as a human being move on from that? And I just found it so beautiful and emotional, and I loved that feeling. And so I love the work of, I want to be with people and with men that I work with, that like I want them to be emotional and be themselves, because I know that that's usually, if you come to me, you probably have a hard time with that. So like when I see that happen, I know it's really beautiful. And I also, and to say to everyone listening, that when someone is having a hard time or, starts crying or gets really upset, our initial reaction is to try to say, oh, but it'll get better, or, oh, you'll find someone, or whatever the thing is, right? Because our intention is we want to make them stop crying and feel better. Because really what we're saying is you're making me uncomfortable because I don't want you to cry.
Ooh.
But so what we have to get better at is being able to sit with people and just be like, I know it's hard. This sucks.
Yeah.
Because that's what people want, is that what they really want is to be like, you see my pain. Thank you.
Yeah.
And you just have to be with them and sit with them and just show that hey, I still love you, even though you're struggling.
Yeah. I don't know if I brought this up in session, but I'll bring it up now. So as of this recording, I am currently I'm drowning in depression, and I am basically like a lifeboat or a lifeline to my friends. And that's how I present myself to them, as like the mama bear, the caretaker. And two of my friends are facing some very heavy shit right now. One friend has been, or is currently grieving the loss of a very close family member. And my other friend is currently grieving himself because he has an incurable form of cancer. And gosh, the amount of emotions and the crying, and I want to say it's going to get better, but that felt so wrong in the moment. So all I could say, being the depressed person that I am, I'm like, yeah, it fucking sucks. That's hard. And I don't know what it's like, but shit, it's not easy what you're going through. And what else can you say to someone that's facing heavy, hard times, right? You can't be toxic positive and be like, oh, you're going to be fine. It's going to be better. And it's like, you don't know that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that's empathy, to be able to say that, just yeah, I know it's hard. And also, by the way, to say it's going to get better and shit like that is it's just setting up for more disappointment, because you also don't know if it will. And even you said with your friend who's suffering with cancer, right? We don't know, and we can say I'm going to be here for you, and we're going to fight through this and stuff. But, I feel like we as people need to get more comfortable with disappointment and feeling when things don't work out, and being able to sit with that, right? Because
we have to get comfortable with discomfort.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
God.
And the thing is, it's never comfortable, right? But we just have to gain a tolerance to it.
But how? It's so hard. That's difficult because for me, I'm very pain avoidant. I have a very thing with fear. I fear pain and anything that could potentially cause me pain, which is why I'm single. Hi. But yeah, how do we grow a tolerance to those hard, difficult situations?
I think you just have to practice being in it. I don't think it's all of a sudden it just gets easier. You were talking about, so what you just said about not being in a relationship, entering into relationships is one of the scariest things, because what it means, and a lot of people do this, is that as soon as things start to get a little bit serious, they'll get really uncomfortable, because all of a sudden there's a chance of I'm going to get hurt. Right? And so that's why a lot of people jump ship. But I remember a meditation teacher teaching this to me one time, which made a lot of sense. And I just think about it all the time. But he just said, everything has a beginning and an end. When we enter into relationships, friendships, or romantic relationships, or even just our family members, right? Everything has an end, because at some point, one person has to die, at least. So and usually that's not the case, but for the example, romantic relationships, that I know I would do this, where I would date someone for a while and then it wouldn't work out. And I would be so mad at myself for trusting that person, for letting myself get this far into it. And then I ended up getting hurt. But then I realized that, first of all, the chance of it ending at some point is, that there's always going to be a chance of that. And if I can remember that, hey, the joy that I felt in the relationship, if I could have kept coming back to that joy and been well, yeah, the breakup was painful, but it's not going to last forever, right? Like I will feel better and I will move on, but I can still focus on the joy that I had with that relationship. And even though it was really hard the way it ended and I was really painful, there was still so much joy that I got out of it. Like I had a partner who passed away from cancer like 4 years ago now. And I always look at that so much as like this, what the pain and the grief from going through when he passed away was a symbol of how much I loved him. So like that to me is just beautiful. And so I'm like, well, I couldn't have felt all that love and that joy without that pain. Like, so it's kind of, it's not about like, oh, pain is now easy and I don't really feel it anymore. It's like you do, but you have to look at it as like it is this part of life and don't be scared of it.
I don't want it. I don't want it. Sorry. Pain. Pain.
Well, it's going to happen. so get over it.
All right, fine. Have you ever watched WandaVision, Vance?
No, I haven't.
There's a line in WandaVision that's said by Vision, and it's, I think, at the very last episode or second last, where he says, "What is grief if not love persevering?" And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's beautiful, right? It's like you can't experience that kind of sadness if you never loved that person to begin with. And it's just nice to look back at those times when you really loved that person, no matter how painful the experience was. Because like for me, my last relationship ended in 2016, mainly because 1, he was in the closet, and 2, he cheated on me 3 times. So that fucking sucked. And he was the one who said, "I love you" first. And like, oh my God. I look back at that relationship now and I look back at it with kinder eyes and say, you know what? I'm glad that that version of Tim went through that and he learned something from it. Whereas in the moment, at the point of the breakup, I was absolutely devastated. I was like driving home in the snow. I was wiping tears from my eyes. I almost got into a car accident because of how much tears were in my eyes. I'm like, this fucking sucks. But now it's like, you know what? That Shakespeare saying was true. It is better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all. Yeah. And that's pretty.
And then to have even deeper insight onto it is that even with this guy, I think one of the things that I want people to also understand is that people are all trying to do their best, right? And so like even to that person, he probably did really care about you, but like, you know, obviously struggle with some stuff. And you know, like I hate how as a society we see cheating as like this, oh, it's this ultimate betrayal, and it's a breaking of trust, right? Is what it is. But I think it's not. Yeah, but it's not we have to start to be a bit more understanding and compassionate and be like, create that boundary of you cheated on me and hurt me, so I can't have you in my life. But I also have to try to understand and see that people are all struggling. They're dealing with things. They are reacting out of places that, you know, that we don't understand. And so it's like, that's the healthy thing about boundaries, right? Is that we can create those boundaries and keep us safe and still love the other person.
Speaking of boundaries, I want to ask you about boundaries during session, because you are a somatic sex practitioner. And from first impressions, anyone listening to this, they could think, oh, okay, that means I could possibly have sex with him. So what are some of the boundaries that you as a practitioner create with your clients? Like, whether it be emotional, like no romantic feelings whatsoever, no sexual touches whatsoever. How do you create that safe space, that container with your clients?
So the boundaries physically are that clothes stay on, there's no touching of genitals, and there's no kissing on the mouth. So things can be sexual, and like there's things like I could cuddle with a client, right? Or you could even just have a client, you know.
You're telling me I could have cuddled with you today? Oh my God, I would have wanted a good cuddle.
I asked you what you needed.
I know. I was nervous. I was scared. I didn't want to be like, is that too much to ask?
Yeah.
I needed a dick inside of me, Vance.
Yeah. So that I could not help you out with.
No, damn it.
So yeah, so those are the so that's what I mean about you. There still can be touch and intimacy involved within those boundaries. And like the emotional side of it too is that I have to express those boundaries with clients because, I'll have clients that reach out to me afterwards and want to like just to talk all the time and things like that. And like the one thing the reason why I create this boundary with clients is because it's very easy for someone to just be like, Vance is super nice, so I'm just going to just start like relying on him and put like talking to offload to him because I've been doing that in session. And the thing is like, but my goal is that clients find that in their own life with their own relationships that are outside of me, right? And so sometimes I have to create that healthy boundary of being like, I'm not emotionally available all the time. And I do that with my friends. Like I'm not emotionally available to always be there. And everyone should be able to know that for themselves. But and all of this I'm doing is because I want men to go out there and be able to start creating those healthy connections with more people. And it's just too easy to just, put it all on me and hope that
Yeah, like there is a tendency for anyone that goes to therapy, for example, there's a tendency that we look at our therapist as like a parental figure or like someone that we can just like, have at our disposal to be like, here's what happened to me. This is what's wrong with it. But like, that's also something that I'm unpacking as well with my relationship with my therapist is because like, he's a gay guy and I don't really have the greatest relationship with my father. So then I start to see my therapist as my father and I'm starting to rely on him for like, the things that I wanted in a father figure. Like, I'm looking to my therapist for like validation and to be like, am I doing a good job, Dad? Like, and he's like, I'm not your dad. Don't say daddy. So I can imagine that like in a somatic session, something similar can come up where it's like they can start to project on their insecurities or emotions onto you, and like they'll just think, okay, he's great. These are the boundaries that he created. I guess this is fine to do. So how do you personally self-regulate as a somatic practitioner when you carry all that energy, when you have all those boundaries that have the possibility of being crossed? It's like, how do you keep your own energy safe and protected?
Well, I know my boundaries.
Well, yeah.
So like, that's the one thing that it's that like my work is huge on is teaching people boundaries, because a lot of people don't know what their boundaries are. And so like for me, it's like if I like, and I'm not from clients, but just from like friends or family members, that if I get a text and all of a sudden I'm like, ugh, then I'm like, okay, they've just crossed a boundary. So like I either have to say ignore it or be like, hey, I can't talk right now. Because like that the moment of, because that's where resentment comes from, right? Is that all of a sudden you're like, ooh, you have a friend that keeps like leaning on you, asking you for help for things or support, and then all of a sudden you start going like, oh my God, because you don't have the energy and they're crossing a boundary. But it's up to you to create that healthy boundary. And so, it was good that you brought up the therapist thing, because I think the thing is like, whether you're someone's therapist, doctor, a friend, boyfriend, whatever the title of the person is in your life, we all have to set boundaries. So like your therapist can really care about you and like you as a person, but they're still going to set boundaries because they need to do that, because they're like, well, I can't just, my boundary also is that I get paid for this work. And so I can't just like let you get free therapy all the time because it's going to make me feel resentful. So he can still care about you and set that boundary, right?
Yeah. Much in the same way that you do it. Yeah.
Yeah, we all have to practice doing that. We have to practice doing that with our partners, right? Like we have boundaries of being like, I don't want to have sex tonight. I'm too tired. I have to set that boundary. And a lot of people will just have the sex and be like, oh, and then they'll hate it. And they'll be like, oh, why am I so angry with him? And it's like, oh, because you didn't set that boundary and you weren't listening to your body.
Oh God, resentment is like the poison for all types of relationships. I hate I hate resentment. I resent resentment.
Mhm.
And also me being like a people pleaser. I really need to
Mhm.
work on my boundaries because I was like, I've let too many people in, and I have been exhausted because
Mhm.
I have, like I said earlier in this conversation, I have this weird connection between my sense of self-worth and being like a good friend. So if I'm not there for my friends, then I'm not a good person. So even if I'm having a shitty day and I cannot even begin to hold space for my friends and my friends need me, I feel like it is my moral obligation to be there for them even if I can't do it. And that is, as I say that out loud, that is very poor boundaries. Very
Mhm.
not authentically me. What's
And
wrong
the
with me,
thing,
Vance?
well, the thing is because I have so I have this too, and the people pleasing thing probably comes from this needing to be liked, right? And so the thing that I'll do is like I used to do this all the time, where people would want to hang out, and I never like I'm an introverted person, and like most times I don't want to hang out, and so
Hmm.
but I would always say yes because it felt like if I say no, they're not going to ask me again. They're going to stop hanging out with me. So like I need to make sure this person I'm making sure this person feels really good because as soon as I start setting that boundary, they're going to be like, oh well, he doesn't want to hang out anymore,
Oh my god,
and so that's why
same.
it's really hard to set boundaries, right? But the thing about it is like if someone doesn't respect your boundaries, then that person doesn't really care about you.
Yeah, they shouldn't be in your life to begin with. And like,
But again, I also
yeah,
because I always am very careful with like, no one's toxic. Like if someone is like, because some people just aren't respectful of boundaries because they get triggered because they feel like it's rejection or they like it's so
yeah,
so so it's not about oh they shouldn't be in your life, but recognizing that like okay this person struggles with other people's boundaries, right? And maybe we can teach each other how to like have better boundaries, right?
yeah. Because that's also my fear when it comes to like having to weaken my boundaries more in terms of intimacy and emotion. I'm scared that if I'm not there for my friends or my loved ones that one time and I appeared selfish, they're going to think I'm an awful person and they're going to walk out of my life forever.
Hmm.
How, like, that's my catastrophizing brain at work. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
stop, get out of there, please. I just want to rest. I want to sleep.
But you know what? If that's an actual fear of yours, that in times like that, if that's what you think with those people, it is a great moment for vulnerable connection. Is to say to those people, like, I'm really scared of losing you, but I need my space sometimes. And most people will be like, "Oh my God, I love you. I'm like, I'll be here for you. I didn't realize you needed the space. Like, please take it." Right? Like, we don't have to say like, "Oh God, leave me alone. I don't want to hang out." Right? Like, we can do this in a loving way that actually generates connection.
That's true. Like, I can say, hey, I really love you and I care for you, but I cannot be there for you in the way that you want me to be because I am currently going through da 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 da.
Mm-hmm.
And see, as easy as that was for me to say now, I feel like in the moment I would just be like, yeah, sure, okay, here, come to Tim, come to Mama Tim.
Yeah,
I will care for you. Let
yeah,
me take away all of your burden and all of your pain.
yeah. But that's a hard thing. Like I had that recently with someone I was dating, and it like the thing is I had so much fear of them leaving me, and I was like, oh, I have to because the fear was starting to like run the way I was in the relationship. So I was like on nerves, being really needy. So I was like, oh, but I could just say that I'm really afraid of losing you. And but the fear is that like sometimes people will be like, whoa, that's too much for me to handle, right? And luckily he did not, but it was a chance to be vulnerable. And then like, but also when you do that with someone that you're having those feelings of you're afraid by setting boundaries you're going to lose them, when they say that, it makes you start to feel safe in your body again, that like, oh hey, like I can be afraid and this person can acknowledge that and see that and still be here for me, right?
Oh, yeah, that's true. Still, that takes a
Yeah.
lot of work to be like, to be my most authentic self. I have to set healthy boundaries with everyone that I meet because we're so used to being in a culture of inauthenticity. And
Mm-hmm.
oh boy, that is that's a challenge, and I hope everyone listening to this will be up for that challenge, especially now when we're all trying to look at our best self, appear our best self over social media. It's like, hey, the pandemic doesn't really affect me. I'm on vacation in Puerto Vallarta. Hang. Like, God, we get it.
Yeah.
But in your practice as a somatic practitioner, I want to ask, how do your teachings in session apply to you in your everyday life?
Well, I think I try to practice it myself.
Right.
Everything that
but like I guess in a more concrete example that I'm asking for is like in your relationships with your friends, in your work as an OnlyFans creator. How do your somatic sex values go into your other parts of your life?
Well, is when you bring up like the OnlyFans thing too and stuff, it's that the values that I want to follow are authenticity, connection, and creativity. And so like even on my OnlyFans, I want to connect with men, or myself. Most of my stuff is solo stuff anyways on my OnlyFans, but
that's beautiful.
But it is still about like being in connection with myself and with my body and all that. But I think I just always try to be myself. Like honestly, like, and it's just like a daily thing through everything that I do is that I think it's really easy to look towards other people that are doing the same thing as you and be like, okay, well, I'll just copy that and I'll just be that. And that'll be my determinant for success. And I think I've just like always tried to practice sometimes moment by moment to just be myself and feel what I'm feeling. And in my relationships, I try to just be open as possible and show as much of my emotions as I feel comfortable with. And
emotions.
Yeah. I just,
you
and
can
I
tell
try to be
my challenge with emotions. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh God.
I just try to be myself. I think I was a full blown like drug addict, alcoholic in my 20s. And I think I had to, in my mid 20s, I started going to therapy and working on myself. And it was really about learning to accept who I was and not needing the approval of other people. And sometimes, and honestly, that can be like a lonely journey to be yourself. But I also think that I'm not alone. It just means that like more of the time I'm going to just be doing my own thing and still connecting with people. But maybe I'm not going to PV every winter with the same group of people or have like going for dinner with 10 friends every weekend. Right. But I think it's really important that I be myself through my work and through my life.
And I feel like that's the least that you can ask of yourself and for anyone listening and for all of your clients. Just connect with yourself. That is easier said than done. And it is quite a challenge. But I feel like when we're asking ourselves to be ourselves, that's the kindest thing that we can do, especially in a time when we're like limited in our space and our social interaction. Try to connect with your most authentic self. Oh, I love that. Oh, Vance, you're so smart and beautiful and just like absolutely amazing. Vance, truly, you're just like a source of light in the world and in like just everything. Like you're so fucking cool. And I'm so glad that we connected. And I'm trying to get better at saying this, and I see, I'm already pretty nervous. I'm sending you love, Vance. I love you. Sending you love. Sending you love in like the human, like I love humanity kind of way. I'm giving a virtual hug right now.
Well, I love you too. And I just want to say I'm really grateful and appreciative of you showing up today and being yourself and allowing me to connect with you. I love this stuff. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Vance. And do you have any like parting words for the listeners who want to seek the services of a somatic practitioner, or just like any last words of wisdom about authenticity?
Oh my God, last words of wisdom.
No pressure.
All of this stuff that we're talking about it's always going to be hard and challenging. I don't think it's ever supposed to be easy. And like one of the best things that I've ever just kind of realized about life is that it's not supposed to be easy. So when it's hard, it's supposed to be hard. And so I think that when I stop trying to resist it all the time and make myself feel better all the time, it just allowed me to kind of live my life with a little bit more ease. But it didn't make it comfortable or feel good all the time. But I think the point of life is to experience it all and to have connection. It's so important to have healthy, meaningful relationships. And that's what I want for everybody. And whether it's working with me or working with a therapist or some other type of professional or just working on yourself, finding your own practice. Yeah, whatever it might be. I think it's so important and beneficial and invaluable to do this work.
It should be hard. We should be comfortable. And we should have connection. Sounds a lot like bottoming.
Yeah.
And just to wrap this up,
that's so worth it. So
that's so worth it. Oh my God, the very last connection there when you just take it all in, take it like a champ.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Vance, you have been such an amazing guest, and I want to wrap this up. And as much as I hate to wrap anything up,
yeah,
can you please make a butt and plug away anything that you want the audience to find?
Yeah, so you can find me on social media. So you can find me on Instagram at my name, which is VanceHdmn. You can find me on Twitter at Vance_TO. And the links for all my coaching, OnlyFans, and all that will be through my social media. So.
And I'll put that all in the show notes. So if anyone wants to hire you, they know where to find you.
Yeah.
And so Vance, thank you so much again for the millionth time for the beautifulness that you are. And to all the listeners that have made it this far into this conversation, thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Sex Ed with Tim podcast. Please don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And I will see you at the next one. Bye. Thanks for listening to the Sex Ed with Tim podcast. Sex Ed with Tim is created and produced by me, Tim Lagman. Music is Aces High by Kevin MacLeod. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at GaySlutClown and at Sex Ed with Tim. You can also like and follow me on the Sex Ed with Tim Facebook page. If you enjoyed the show, please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Even better, you can also support the show on Patreon, where you can get early access to ad-free episodes and more. Thanks for all your support, you dirty little slut. Mwah.